All right, Tim. So how big is this topic that we're about to dive into?
Well, this impacts almost every public school in the country. In many cases, a kid's fate is being determined when they're 5 years old based on whether they live on one side of the street or the other side of the street.
Today I'm sitting down with author Tim DeRoche to discuss something that affects millions of American families, the invisible lines that decide where our kids go to school.
It's an unfair game. I think there are losers up and down the economic spectrum. Parents and families are forced to make these awful decisions with life-changing stakes.
I want to learn who decides which public school children are assigned to, and why some parents are willing to commit a crime for their kids' education.
Do I use my cousin's address to get my kid into a school? Well, that's breaking the law. Parents have been put in jail for that.
Tim believes this has gone unquestioned for too long, but trying to disrupt the system might get messy.
Is this something you think will upset me as I learn about it?
I don't know, hopefully.
This is Stand Together Presents stories, ideas, and advice from changemakers tackling our biggest challenges.
Hey, Marty, shoes on.
Okay, so my kids go to public schools, and where I live, there are about 6 other elementary schools nearby that you'd think would be an option for us. But like a lot of parents, where my kids go to school wasn't decided by me. The majority of states use assignment lines that choose the neighborhood schools our kids go to. There isn't much transparency, so I wanted to know from Tim how we got here.
The public education system is really a huge anomaly in our society. We don't allocate any other government service based on where you live, right? We all go to neighborhood grocery stores, we take our kids to the neighborhood daycare centers. We do all of that without empowering the government to draw exclusionary, discriminatory maps that keep out other people. These lines don't understand how your kid is unique, right? Every kid has a unique learning style, has unique needs, and these lines, they were drawn by a bureaucrat, perhaps decades ago. That person has no understanding of what your kid's needs are today in the here and now.
And one of the things Tim noticed in his research is that this policy has its roots in redlining. But what does that really mean?
This is a redlining map from the 1930s. The red areas were the areas that were designated as hazardous, with lots of people of color, primarily African Americans and immigrants. And then the blue area was the desirable area.
And today, this black line shows the attendance zone for a coveted public school in Brooklyn.
It covers the majority of that blue area, that quote-unquote desirable area.
You'd assume that the line was drawn back in the 30s as well.
Right? And obviously the neighborhood itself has changed quite a bit, but certain things have stayed the same.
It's pretty obvious that a system that uses income and past racial discrimination to restrict a child's education is a problem. But what happens to parents who want the best for their kids and try to fight the system?
All right, so who is this in this photo?
This is Kelly Williams-Bolar. She worked in the Akron public schools. She said, "These are not the types of schools I want my daughters in. I don't feel that they're gonna be safe. I don't feel like they're gonna thrive in these schools." Her dad lived 10 minutes away in a different school district. She used her dad's address to get her daughters into this suburban public school district. The school district hired a private investigator to follow her around, discovered that she was not using her address, and they kicked the kids out of school, and then 18 months later, they came back and filed charges against her.
One Ohio mom is currently sitting in jail, accused of illegally trying to get her daughters into a better school district.
It got nationwide attention as Kelly was prosecuted and given 2 5-year sentences in prison. Her father was also sentenced, and sadly, he died while he was incarcerated.
I mean, was there outrage? What did people think about when they heard her story?
There was outrage. Her dad's a property owner there. Her dad's a taxpayer in that district. Kelly's trying to make the right decisions for her daughters, and she's put in jail for it. Eventually, she ended up being pardoned by Governor Kasich. There was a general feeling, hey, this is not right. The problem is the laws that allowed that district to do that are still in place.
So the question is, if parents want options to make sure their kids get the best education, what alternatives do they have?
In the near term, I think we just want to make the lines less important. One of the things we're very big fans of is open enrollment. Allow kids to cross the lines to apply to schools outside of the particular school that they're zoned for. States can require districts to allow kids to cross the lines to apply to schools, and they can require schools to give those kids a fair shot to get in.
One challenge to this approach is that it could make schools that are struggling worse. Tim says that examples in higher education suggest otherwise.
I think of the California community colleges. We used to do this several decades ago with the community colleges, right? You had to go to one community college that was assigned to your address. But the state legislature decided, hey, this is not in the best interest of California citizens, right? California citizens should be able to cross these lines. They opened up enrollment.
It turns out when California's community colleges allowed for open enrollment, they began to compete for attendance from students from all over the state. This led them to specialize in different fields and build unique programs to set themselves apart.
Well, what happened to the community colleges? They're a huge boon for our state. I mean, I believe that getting rid of the lines might kind of rejuvenate the whole system.
If open enrollment were the law in my state, I'd be able to send my daughters to a school that we love that's just 2 miles down the road. But I also realize the impact that could have on property values, taxes, and other concerns. Tim sees those issues too, but says we have to do something.
Open enrollment isn't going to fix everything, right? It's not a utopian vision, but what it is it's a vision of the public school system that is truly available to all, that's open to all.
Open enrollment policies are having success in states like Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Arizona. And Idaho just passed new open enrollment policies that could have significant impact on those students. But just because a state says their schools are open doesn't always guarantee it. Currently, 14 states are classified as open enrollment and yet still have access that is heavily restricted.
We're hoping to spark a movement where we want to hold public schools to the highest standards of openness. I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for parents who've played this game. Let's not just assume that the local school is the right fit for my child. Only you know what's best for your child, and I think we all need to keep an open mind about that.
Stand Together partners with changemakers tackling our biggest challenges. To see more stories, follow our channels. And to learn more about how you can partner with us, go to standtogether.org.